Creativity is essential to the human race. If you don't believe me, look at these cave paintings. One of the earliest surviving records of the human race's need to be creative. These artists were living the most basic lives. Their priorities would have been finding water, food and shelter. And yet they made these drawings. They found the time and energy to gather pigments, use up precious fuel to light the caves, and to take time away from survival activities to do something that our modern society tells us is a luxury. Clearly, after finding food, water and shelter, being creative was another essential activity for these people. Yet on the whole, so many of us see creative activities as something luxurious, expensive, the cherry on the top, not the bread and butter of everyday life. And we hand the making of the arts over to experts and are either disconnected from our own need to be creative or belittle our efforts as not good enough. Consider this photograph of a horse. Then return to the cave paintings. Are the cave paintings unsuccessful because they do not tell us in photographic detail what a horse really looks like? Or are the cave paintings in fact communicating something important and magical? The essence of an animal, the sense of its importance in the life of the community who drew it, and a sense of the people who created the drawings and their view of the world. Now look at this beautiful photograph of a starry sky. It's amazing, isn't it? But compare it to this infamous painting of a starry night. Does it look anything like the photograph? Of course it doesn't. And what would be gained if it did? But it doesn't stop it being a successful painting, does it? Precisely because it creates something unlike the photograph. If Van Gogh had been trying to paint his masterpiece from a photograph rather than from the window of his bedroom, do you think the painting would have had the same visceral, emotional, unique qualities? His painting tells us more than the fact that it was night time and there were lots of stars in the sky. It conveys a sense of the artist, a unique person, communicating how that night felt, how he perceived what he was looking at. This is what we bring to a drawing. Each one of us does. We bring ourselves to our drawings. If the self is constrained by self-conscious thoughts and narratives which say, my drawing doesn't look like what I am drawing, my drawing doesn't capture the likeness of the person I am drawing, then the way we draw is constrained, tight, self-conscious, more concerned with how the drawing will be judged, rather than allowing ourselves to submerge ourselves in the experience of looking and making marks. And our work will express that self-consciousness in every line and mark we make. We will tentatively draw a line, perhaps taking our pencils off the paper multiple times as we doubt ourselves, rather than boldly moving the pencil over the page. And we will draw what we think is there, a perfectly circular orange, rather than the unique, irregular fruit before us. Van Gogh famously, allegedly, only sold one painting in his life. He was breaking from the constraints of what society at the time defined as good art. But he didn't change his work and think, oh dear, I better make it look more like everybody else's. He allowed himself to be himself, and it is there in his paintings and what makes them beautiful and unique. The more you can value your own individualism, your own way of seeing, your own way of drawing, without worrying about what anyone else thinks or even you think of the end result, the better your drawings will be, because they will convey something unique and individual about you to the viewer. Don't be afraid to show your weaknesses, because that's how we learn.